It's time for the season starts here. Unbelievably, the Premier League is back on Saturday after no break at all, following a massive break that nobody foresaw. And over the course of the next 15 minutes or so, Adam Russell is going to give you a very, very biased partisan pick in League Two, but he's also going to give you some much more reasoned bets in the other three divisions, including the Premier League. How are you, Adam?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Johnny. Some of them might not be as reasoned as you'd hope, but let's go anyway.
Just let's start with the Premier League, because I can't really get my head around the fact, and obviously all markets are making Man City odds on, and they're making Liverpool thereabouts 2-1, 21-10 with Star Sports, yet Liverpool battered Man City last season. It's 10-1 bar. Can you enlighten me on this?
Yeah, see, I'm in the same boat with you. I had a word with some of the traders at Star Sports to check that this was accurate. 21-10 for Liverpool to win the Premier League after everything that they achieved last year and in the last two seasons. I mean, 195 points over two seasons. It's incredible consistency. So I think if you're not looking at taking on Liverpool at 21-10 with Man City at 8-11, I think you're a fool this season.
Okay, yet you still only kind of more or less believe that only one of these two teams can win it. It's 10-1 Chelsea, Man United 14, 28 Arsenal, and we will get into the market without the top two, but essentially you're saying one of them will win it.
Yeah, that's the way I see it going. I think the other clubs, the other three or four clubs have got a lot of a gap to bridge. I think Chelsea have obviously made a lot of good signings, so I think they've got the best chance of bridging the gap, but I think for me, it's those two. It's just a matter of which one. And then for me, it's Liverpool. I think with Man City, it's interesting. They lost 9 games in the Premier League last season, which from where they were in the previous 2 seasons is quite a significant drop-off. I think what they've got is a very good squad, obviously. And I think the biggest problems are probably still at the back. I think Laporte he only played 15 games in the Premier League last season, and we had a 6-month break. So he clearly got glass ankles. I think, Stones, Otamendi have proven that they're not consistent enough to help City compete on all fronts. I think Nathan Ake is obviously a good signing for them. I think we all know his qualities and his ability, but to come from a Bournemouth team who conceded 65 goals last season to move into the heart of a Man City defence who are expected to compete on all fronts, because Pep expects Man City to win the League Cup, to win the FA Cup, but to be able to do that and compete in the Premier League and compete in the Champions League, I just don't think they've signed the players that they'll need to bridge that gap on Liverpool this season.
Fair enough. So, there are markets on pretty much everything you want here. For example, one that would strike me is a top 6 finish, Leeds at 14s. But I'd be more going for Leeds at 2s to finish in the top half, because I think they will have a good season. I think they're made for the Premier League. But let's get to the market without the top 2, because this is absolutely dominated by Chelsea and Man United. 11-8 Chelsea, 6-4 Man United. Are Arsenal at 8-1 and Spurs at 9-1 that far behind those two?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting market if we're assuming that City and Liverpool are going to run away as the top 2 is essentially who will finish third. I know that Chelsea have been well backed at Star Sports in this market so far. They've obviously brought in their new look attack for next season with Pulisic, Ziyech, Werner and Havertz. If they can gel quickly, then I think they've got a really strong looking attack to go with the midfield. Kante and Kovacic and Havertz as a 3. I think that's really strong. For me, the worry is defensively again. Is Thiago Silva at 35? Is he really going to be the answer to the problems that they had last season? They conceded a lot of goals. Obviously, they brought in Chilwell at left back, who is a solid Premier League performer. But again, that'd be where I'd worry with Chelsea. With Arsenal, I really like the project that Arteta has started. They've obviously won the FA Cup and the Community Shield, so things have maybe advanced and progressed a little bit quicker than people were thinking. But I still think they're kind of at that place where Liverpool were 2 or 3 seasons ago, where he's starting to bring in the kind of players that he wants and he's trying to get that system going. But I still think there's a lot of work for them to do to get that consistency that's going to be needed if they want to challenge for sort of 2nd, 3rd place this year.
A market I've always kind of had a fondness for keeping an eye on over the season is that season points handicap. Liverpool get 4, City get 4, Chelsea get 16. Who's been popular in this? I think the last time we were talking, I think you were saying Southampton, they'd come into 38, but you look at Leeds at 45. This is a market, I guess, you back if you're a fan of one of the teams, but 14-1 everyone.
Yeah, and speaking to some of the traders, there's been some interesting market movements on this one. Seeing a lot of support for United and Chelsea as maybe contenders to sort of get near Chelsea and to get near City and Liverpool. And there's also been a lot of support for Southampton, which we touched on SSTV last week. They obviously finished the season really well. Wolves, who are well priced in that handicap, if you think they're going to have another good season, they seem to get better with every year they have in the Premier League at the minute. The interesting one for me, especially in the last week or so, is Everton. They've obviously brought in quite a strong-looking midfield on paper in Decore and James Rodriguez and Alon from Napoli. So they're plus 36 at the minute. So I think teams might do well to get 36 more points than Everton at the minute.
Fulham are evens for relegation, and it's funny, you look at Sheffield United, because I think Sheffield United are going to go markedly down this season as teams figure them out. They're only actually 7-2 to finish, considering how well they did last season, 7-2 to get relegated, and same price as Leeds and Brighton.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time that we'd seen a club come up from the Championship, perform really well in that first season, and then kind of drop off. Yeah, recent examples I'm thinking of, like a Hull City, who obviously had like one good season and then dropped down. It does happen. Again, they've signed some very like Sheffield United style players, not necessarily big names, but people who are gonna fit in well with that system. I worry about whether they'll have enough goals consistently this season to stay up. Obviously, they've got people like McBurney and Callum Robinson and things like that, but I'm not sure there's enough proven Premier League goals in there this season. I agree with you. I think they could struggle. Fulham, I also think struggle. I'm not sold on Leeds. I saw a lot of Leeds in the Championship over the last 2 seasons, and when they're good, they're really good. But I've also seen when they're bad, they can be really bad. And there's not going to be any teams in the Premier League that worry about facing Leeds next season. Yeah. If you ask me, I think they've obviously got a good system and good players, but I don't think the idea of them in top 6 or top 10, for me, I think they'll be much closer towards relegation than they will the top 10.
Before we conclude the Premier League and briefly chat about the other 3 divisions, there's a next manager to leave market, Young Player of the Year, first to 10 Premier League goals, and even England midfield hopefuls and goal scorer pairs, which pair will score the most goals. So which of these is kind of taking your eye?
With the goal scorer pairs, I think I wouldn't look much further than Mane and De Bruyne. I think they're 7-1 at the minute. They got as the favourites are Jesus and Martial, who got 31 goal contributions between them last season, as did Mane and De Bruyne. Now, I'm assuming the market is assuming that there's going to be some improvement out of Jesus and Martial, but I'm not 100% sure on that. For me, De Bruyne is going to have that season where everyone just says, wow, what a player. I think this is his Ballon d'Or season, if you ask me. I think Mane sort of took over the mantle with Salah last season as like Liverpool's main man and the sort of the go-to man when they needed a goal. So I think he could have another good season. I think that price 7-1 is quite tempting.
I'm interested in Millwall at 22s for the Championship in the sense that Troy Parrott has gone there on loan, and I think even though it's still early days for him, I think he could explode. But for sometimes you get a fairly strong Championship favourite. This is not one of those years.
Yeah, I don't know too much about Troy Parrott. I think you probably know slightly more about him than I do.
Well, again, I know that we've been so bereft of a striker of any quality in Ireland since Robbie Keane. We want anyone, and Troy is the man at the moment because he hasn't played, so he hasn't failed. So, but I do think he's actually going to be very good. Yeah,
and I think it's an interesting proposition for Millwall. I think they showed a lot of improvement after they sort of let Neil Harris go and things like that. So I think they're an outside chance, not one that I'd put a lot of thought into.
6 is Brentford and Norwich.
Yeah, Brentford I really like. I think they've got a really good project, and the way the club is set up is really good. They've obviously it's just been announced this morning that Ollie Watkins has joined Aston Villa. So that's going to be a fairly big loss to them. But they always seem to have another £20 million striker ready to just roll off the lot anyway. So if they can replace him properly, they've obviously still got Syed Benrahma, who was arguably the best player in the Championship last season. So I think they're interesting at 11-2. I also think, like you say, Norwich at 6-1. They haven't really let many of those Premier League players leave, whereas teams like Bournemouth have obviously let a lot of their Premier League players move on and go back into the Premier League. So I think they're an interesting shout at 6-1. But for me, I am going to go with Watford, just because I think they've got that really nice balance now of experience and proven Premier League quality to go around with some good young players. I really like Will Hughes. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the Premier League last season. I think he can do a job sort of in the middle and out wide as well. I think he's a good player. They've obviously got people like Troy Deeney who have got a wealth of experience. So I think, Watford 13-2 at the minute with Star Sports. I think that's the way I'm going in the Championship this season.
So let's talk about two fallen giants then. Sunderland and your beloved Bolton.
Is it time for me to put the mask on, do you reckon?
It is.
Is it too soon?
No, that's all right. And Bolton could do with selling anything they can at the moment, of course. But anyway.
Yeah, those masks sold out quite quickly. I think they funded a trip for a new striker this summer anyway.
I mean, like when you look at Sunderland as well, obviously they're favourites for League One, Bolton League Two. It's amazing how things can fall so fast for these big clubs.
Now, I have an interesting take on Sunderland. Their manager, Phil Parkinson, is ex-Bolton manager. He took us out of League One like he's looking to do with Sunderland. And I actually think that's going to count against him. He's quite a defensive-focused manager. I think the way that his style of football isn't what the Sunderland fans were ultimately looking for. They're looking for a bit more excitement. I think they've obviously got the size of the club, the facilities, the players. They've got everything that they need to get out of that division, but they've had a couple of cracks at it already and just haven't caught on. There's there's interesting ideas in League One this year because obviously Charlton have gone down, but they've got a few financial issues.
11-1.
Yeah, and it's the same for Hull City as well. They've obviously had a few financial issues, but I quite fancy. I think the price for Hull City is great.
Very euphemistic today. A few financial issues.
Yeah, well, I don't want to criticise too much. It's been tough for Hull fans over the last few years, especially last season. But I quite fancy Hull. I think they've got a good youth academy as well, so I think they'll lean on a few of those players a bit more this season, and I think they're more of an outside shout. But Hull City for me.
Let's get to the one that really matters, the favourites for League Two. It's only Bolton Wanderers, 9-2 against Salford City, 6-1. I mean, talk about a contrast in terms of clubs here. Bolton versus Salford in a match bet in League Two. We can probably get your price on that, but our Bolton value at 9-2. Now, let's be honest.
If I'm being honest, I'm not sure there's a lot of value in Bolton at 9-2.
Don't be honest then.
They're 100% who I'm backing. I've picked out a little ACCA, which includes Bolton to win League Two. We've got a really young manager now in Ian Evatt, who's kind of getting his system implemented. Unfortunately, we've lost the first two games of the season, and defensively we seem to be struggling a little bit. So I'm not sure there's that much value in Bolton at 7-2. I think there's probably more value in Salford. They're a really big draw for players at that level at the minute. Obviously,
money.
Yeah, and also getting the chance to work with the Nevilles and Scholes and the class of '92 is a big draw for.
Tell us your ACCA then.
Yeah, my ACCA is 1,660 to 1 with Star Sports. So if you fancy a big price this weekend, I'll be going for that one. Liverpool to win the Premier League, Watford to win the Championship, Hull City to win League One, and the mighty Bolton Wanderers to win League Two.
Easy as that.
Well, easy as 1,660 to 1. So we'll check in July and see how we get on with that one.
Check out the website for all the special markets and check out us for the rest of the season. It all starts on Saturday.
Yeah, look at some of the Stars markets. They've got a massive range of markets for the Premier League, for the Championship, League One, League Two, anything you can sink your teeth into. I think the goal contributions market is really interesting. We've got De Bruyne leading the way on that one. We've got markets for the Golden Boot, for PFA Player of the Year. Like you mentioned, England pairs, goal scorer pairs, everything you want. Get your teeth sunk into some of them. Good luck to everyone this weekend. Hopefully we have a few winners that we can talk about on next week's show.
Cheers, Adam.
Cheers, Johnny.